Ferrari just ran a secret test, and what leaked from it could flip the entire Formula One season overnight. We are talking about a 5-part upgrade worth up to almost 4/10 per lap, a gain big enough to erase most of their gap to Mercedes in a single race. But here is the part nobody expected. This is not just Ferrari getting faster. This is happening at the exact moment the FIA is preparing to clamp down on the very tricks Mercedes has been using to dominate. Which means one thing: Ferrari could be gaining performance, while Mercedes is losing it at the same time. And if that happens, the entire grid resets instantly, because this is not a normal upgrade. This is a complete system. New rear wing, new floor, new energy model, and a power technique Ferrari learned directly from Mercedes itself. So the real question is not whether Ferrari improved. It is whether they just found the one thing that Mercedes cannot copy in time. Stay with me, because what happens next in Miami could change everything. Subscribe now, because this is where the season turns. At first, it looked like the same story again. Ferrari fast in the corners, strong at the start, aggressive in the opening laps. Everything pointing toward another competitive weekend, but not a winning one, because we had already seen this before. Australia, China, Japan, the same pattern repeating. Ferrari leading early, then slowly losing control as the race unfolded. And every time, the reason was the same. Not the drivers, not the strategy, the engine. A gap of around 25 horsepower to Mercedes, combined with weaker energy recovery and earlier deployment limits. But here is where things start to change, because after Japan, Ferrari stopped looking at results and started looking at causes. Not just where they were losing time, but exactly when, exactly how, exactly why. And what they found was much more specific than anyone expected. They were not losing everywhere. They were losing in very precise moments. At the end of long straights, at the exact point where energy deployment runs out, at the moment where Mercedes still has power, and Ferrari does not. And that realization changed everything, because suddenly, the problem was no longer just we need more power. It became, we need power at the right time. And that is a completely different problem. One that cannot be solved with a bigger engine alone. It requires control, precision, prediction. And that is exactly what Ferrari started building. But here is where it gets even more interesting, because while analyzing their own weaknesses, Ferrari also started analyzing Mercedes. Not just their speed, but their behavior, how they use energy, when they deploy, when they harvest. And what they discovered was the real breakthrough. Mercedes was not just faster. They were generating extra electrical energy during specific phases of the lap, using combustion strategically to feed the hybrid system exactly when needed. And that gave them something Ferrari did not have: consistency, the ability to stay at full performance longer, the ability to attack at the end of straights instead of defending. And once Ferrari understood that, everything changed, because now they were not guessing anymore. They knew exactly what they were missing, and more importantly, they knew it could be replicated, but not copied directly, adapted, integrated into their own system, combined with everything else they were already developing. And that is where the secret test becomes critical, because this was not just about trying new parts. It was about validating a completely new philosophy, a system where every component works together. The rear wing reducing drag, the floor stabilizing the car, the software controlling energy, the engine adapting its behavior. All connected, all synchronized, all designed to solve one problem: not being fast everywhere, but being unbeatable in the moments that matter most. And that is where Ferrari becomes dangerous, because if they get this right, they do not need to match Mercedes in raw power. They only need to beat them at the exact moments where races are decided. But this is where the risk begins to appear, because this level of integration leaves no room for error. If one part is slightly off, the entire system loses effectiveness. If the timing is wrong, the advantage disappears. If the prediction fails, the car becomes vulnerable again. And in Formula One, those margins are everything. But this is where the story takes another turn, because Ferrari is not the only one aware of what is happening. Mercedes knows they are being studied. They know their advantage is no longer invisible. And at the same time, the FIA is watching closely, looking at how energy is being generated and deployed, where the limits are being pushed, where the rules might need to be clarified. And that creates a completely new layer of pressure. Because now, this is not just a battle between teams. is a battle between innovation and regulation, between what is possible and what is allowed. And that means one thing. What we are about to see in Miami is not just an upgrade. It is a confrontation between two different ways of winning. One built on dominance, the other built on precision. And only one of them will survive, because now everything is about to collide. Ferrari's solution, Mercedes' advantage, and the FIA's intervention, all at the same time. And that is when Formula One becomes unpredictable. Because up to this point, Mercedes has been operating with control. They know their system works. They know where they are faster. They know exactly when they can attack. And that confidence is what has kept them ahead. But what happens when that certainty disappears? Because if the FIA forces even a small adjustment, if certain energy techniques are limited, if deployment strategies are slightly restricted, then Mercedes does not just lose performance. They lose stability. They lose the predictability that made them so strong. And that is where Ferrari's timing becomes critical. Because they are not just improving, they are arriving at the exact moment their rival might be forced to change. And in Formula One, that overlap is everything. But here is where the tension becomes even more intense. Because Ferrari is not bringing a single upgrade. They are bringing a system that depends on everything working together. The rear wing must reduce drag without destabilizing the car. The floor must keep balance under extreme heat. The engine must deliver energy at the right moment. The software must predict perfectly. Every lap, every corner, every scenario. And if all of that aligns, then something very unusual happens. Ferrari stops chasing Mercedes and starts dictating the race. But this is where the real risk appears. Because the more complex a system becomes, the more fragile it is. Not physically, but logically. Because one wrong prediction, one unexpected situation, one variable out of place, and the entire advantage collapses. And Miami is exactly the kind of circuit where that can happen. Heat, humidity, long straights, heavy braking zones, constant changes in grip, everything that challenges precision, everything that exposes weakness. But this is also where Ferrari has been preparing specifically, because their new floor is designed for high temperatures. Their energy system is built to adapt in real time. Their entire package is optimized for these exact conditions, which means one thing. This is not coincidence. This is targeted, deliberate, calculated. But here is the final layer that changes everything. Because while Ferrari is preparing for Miami, Mercedes is preparing for Ferrari. They are not unaware. They are not surprised. They know something is coming, and that means they will respond. Adjust setups, optimize their own system, push their limits even further. And that creates the real battle. Not just speed versus speed, but preparation versus reaction, anticipation versus adaptation. And that is where races are truly decided. Because the team that understands the moment first controls it. But now everything leads to one unavoidable conclusion. Miami is not just another race. It is a test, a reveal, a moment where months of development become visible in a single weekend. Where Ferrari either proves that their secret test changed everything, or shows that even their most advanced plan is still not enough to break Mercedes. Because if Ferrari gets this right, if the system works, if the timing is perfect, then this becomes the turning point of the season. The moment where the gap closes. The moment where Hamilton can finally fight on equal terms. The moment where the championship becomes real again. But if they do not, then something much more difficult is confirmed. That even with innovation, even with preparation, even with perfect timing, there are advantages in Formula One that cannot be erased so easily. And that is the question everything now builds toward. When the lights go out in Miami, will Ferrari finally take control of the race? Or will Mercedes remind everyone why they were ahead in the first place? And this is where everything finally becomes real. Because up to now, Ferrari still has one advantage: control. They have controlled the narrative, controlled the expectations, controlled the timing of this entire plan. But the moment the cars hit the track in Miami, that control disappears. And only one thing remains: performance, real performance. Because this is the first time all the pieces come together. Not in isolation, not in testing. Together, the rear wing cutting through the air, the floor stabilizing the car under extreme heat, the engine delivering energy with precision, the software deciding exactly when to unleash everything. All of it in one lap. And that is where the truth appears. Because if even one element is slightly off, you will see it immediately. A small hesitation on the straight, a slight instability in a fast corner, a moment where the power is not there. And in Formula One, that is enough. Enough to lose a position, enough to lose a race. But if everything works, if the system behaves exactly as Ferrari expects, then something very different happens. The car stops looking like it has weaknesses and starts looking complete, balanced, consistent, dangerous, because now there's no obvious moment to attack them, no predictable drop in performance, no phase of a lap where rivals can wait and strike. And that changes how races are fought, because when your opponent cannot read you, they cannot control you. But here is the part that defines everything, because this is not just Ferrari proving they improved. This is Ferrari testing whether they understood the problem correctly, because there is a difference, a huge difference. You can build the perfect solution for the wrong diagnosis, and if that happens, everything falls apart, because you fixed something that was never the real issue. And that is the risk Ferrari has taken. They have committed everything to one interpretation of their weakness, one direction, one system, and now there is no alternative. It either works or it does not. But this is where the final tension reaches its peak, because while Ferrari is proving their solution, Mercedes is proving something else, whether their advantage was ever dependent on the areas being questioned. Because if Mercedes remains strong, if they adapt without losing performance, if they stay ahead even under new scrutiny, then something becomes clear. Their advantage was never fragile. It was fundamental, and that is much harder to beat. But if they do lose something, even slightly, then the balance shifts immediately, because Ferrari is not arriving slowly. They are arriving with everything at once. And that kind of jump is what changes championships. Not small gains, not gradual improvements. A moment, a single moment, where the order changes. So now everything builds toward that moment. The first qualifying lap, the first race start, the first time Ferrari and Mercedes run at full potential, under the same conditions. Because in that instant, we will see it, not in theory, not in data, but in reality. Who has the advantage? Who controls the race? Who made the right call? And the most important question of all, did Ferrari just unlock the one thing that finally breaks Mercedes? Or did they push everything into a solution? That still is not enough to catch them.